When my stepmother passed away, I didn't think it would shake me the way it did. I was 29, newly engaged to my partner, Caleb, and living in Portland, far from the small coastal town where I'd grown up. My dad, Howard, had always been a solid man. Quiet, practical, and loving in his own way. They had been married for 35 years. When she was gone, he sounded like a boy again on the phone. "She's gone," was all he managed to say. I flew back for the funeral, thinking it would be a few days of mourning, then back to my life. But something didn't sit right. The house felt too still. Her perfume still hung faintly in the hallway, and the kitchen was too clean. My dad looked hollow, like someone had scooped the color out of him. So I kept coming back to check in, to keep him company, to be a buffer between him and the silence. It started with small things. Picking up groceries, doing laundry, sorting old mail. I'd drop by with dinner and stay long enough to see him eat. At first he resisted. Then slowly he leaned in.
"Nora,"
he said one day while I was restocking the fridge, "can I ask you something?" I turned. He looked smaller than I remembered. "Would you stay here a while?"
"Just a little while."
I paused. "What about Caleb?" "He'll understand," he said. "This house feels too empty. I don't sleep much anymore." I saw the pain in his eyes. The kind that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with heartbreak. I talked it over with Caleb that night. He hesitated but agreed. "Just don't get swallowed by it," he warned. So I packed a bag and moved back into my old room. Posters of old movies still lined the walls. My childhood books were still stacked on the shelves. It felt like stepping into a time capsule. At first, it was comforting.
Familiar.
We made dinner, watched old game shows, shared the occasional laugh. But then he started making strange requests. One night he asked me to wear one of my stepmother's sweaters because it made the house feel normal. I wanted to chalk it up to grief. I really did. But something inside me stirred uneasily. The first few days passed quietly, and in some strange way, it felt like I was doing the right thing. Dad was eating again. He'd even started walking around the block in the mornings. I told myself this was a step toward healing for both of us. But then came the night that unsettled everything. We were finishing dinner, meatloaf and green beans, one of his favorites. He was unusually quiet, swirling his glass of water as if trying to build up the courage to say something. Then he looked up and said, "I've been thinking about what it means to move on." I smiled, relieved. "That's good, Dad. I think she'd want you to be happy again." He nodded slowly. "I don't want to bring anyone new into this house. I want someone who already knows it, who already knows me." I tilted my head, unsure what he meant. He reached across the table and placed his hand gently over mine. "You've been taking care of me. You understand this house, these memories. Nora, I don't want you to just stay as my daughter. I want you to stay as my partner." The fork slipped from my hand. My heart slammed into my chest.
"What?"
His eyes didn't waver. "I know it sounds strange, but the way you make this house feel alive again, it feels right. I'm just asking you to consider it." I yanked my hand away.
"Dad, no."
"That's not okay. That's not what this is." He blinked, suddenly aware of what he'd said.
"I'm sorry."
"I didn't mean to upset you."
I'm
just lost, Nora. I didn't mean anything inappropriate." I nodded, but inside I was shaking. That night, I called Caleb and told him everything. "You need to get out of there," he said firmly. "Tonight, if you can." But I didn't leave. Not yet. Some part of me needed to understand if this was just grief distorting reality, or something deeper, something unspoken that had been growing in the shadows of our shared silence. The tension in the house began to shift from quiet sadness to something more confusing. Lyle started acting differently, in ways I couldn't quite ignore. Some nights he'd ask me to sit beside him on the couch just to talk, and I'd comply, thinking it was part of his healing. But the way his eyes lingered when I laughed, or how he'd place his hand a little too close to mine, started making me uneasy. One evening over dinner, just a simple meal of chicken and rice, he looked up from his plate and said, "I've been thinking about moving on." I smiled, hopeful. "That's great, Dad. Mom wouldn't want you to be alone forever." He nodded, but his expression didn't match my relief. "I don't want someone new," he said. "I want someone who understands me, who knows this house. Someone like you." The air left my lungs. I stared at him, unsure I heard correctly. When he reached across the table and held my hand, a chill ran through me. "I want you to stay, not just as my daughter, but as my partner. No, I said, pulling my hand back instantly. That's not okay. He looked stunned, then quickly tried to explain himself. I didn't mean it like that. It's the grief talking. I'm sorry. But the way he said it didn't make me feel any safer. That night, I called my fiancé, Dean. You need to get out of there, he said, tonight. But I didn't leave. Not yet. I needed to know if I was overreacting. The next morning, while Lal went for a walk, I searched his study. I found journals tucked neatly in a drawer. The first few entries were about Mom, about the loneliness, the silence. But then, the entries turned toward me. Karen makes the house feel alive again, one read. Maybe this is fate. My stomach turned. That night, I told him I was leaving. You need real help, I said. This isn't grief. It's something else. For the first time, he didn't argue. He looked broken, but also strangely relieved. I packed my bags and left. Moving back in with Dean felt like stepping into a different world. His apartment was small, warm, and nothing like the hollow silence of my father's house. The first night, I slept for nearly 13 hours straight. When I woke up, I cried, not out of fear, but grief. I had lost my mother, but I had also lost the father I thought I knew. Weeks passed. Lyle, to his credit, took steps toward healing. He started therapy, joined a support group, and even began replanting Mom's old garden. I stayed in touch, but with clear boundaries. I called every few days.
Stopped by once a week.
We talked about memories, shared coffee and photos. But we never spoke of that night, and we never would. Some things couldn't be rewritten, only buried gently and left behind. I was healing too.
Slowly.
I kept thinking about how grief warps people. It doesn't always show up as tears. It can twist perception, muddle love, and create illusions so convincing. They feel like truth. But the hardest lesson I learned was this. Love sometimes means walking away. Even from someone you once leaned on. Even from someone who once held your hand when you were afraid of the dark. Dean was patient. He never pushed, never asked me to explain. He just held me on nights when I was too tired to speak and brought me tea in the mornings. It was quiet and simple and real. A few months later, I visited my father's house. The garden had bloomed again. The living room looked different, lighter. He greeted me with a tired smile. He seemed more like himself again, or at least someone trying to become himself. I was proud of him. I didn't say it, but I think he knew. We sat on the porch, sipping coffee, talking about the past. And when the silence came, it was a comfortable one. We didn't need to fill it with apologies or explanations. We had survived something painful. We were rebuilding separately but honestly. And that was enough. Thank you for listening to this episode's story. Don't forget to subscribe and check out more content to discover the many fascinating shades of life.